Hi everyone, I'm Monique and I'm back with a new layout for Peartree Cutfiles. I'm creating this fun autumnal layout today with this beautiful cut file, and you can create one too if you pop along to the Peartree Cutfiles Facebook group, where you'll find this lovely cut file available for free for the full month of October. I created this layout as part of a design team challenge for Peartree Cutfiles, where the design team all took the same cut file and created a new layout, and I just loved seeing the huge variety of layouts that we created among us. Now you can take part too, so just pop along, grab the cut file, create a layout with it, and then pop it into the album in the Peartree Cutfiles Facebook group, and you could stand a chance to win a voucher for the online store or a box of Peartree goodies. I'll link everything up for you below. And now this layout didn't go to plan. I had an idea in my head of what I wanted to create and what I was going to use to create it, and it just didn't quite go to plan. And I just kept adding more and more and more to the layout, because usually when I'm not feeling like I'm loving my layouts, I'll just keep adding to it, and invariably it all works out in the end. But this is an example of where the finished product was not one that I loved, and I just couldn't move on from it. I just couldn't leave it. So I ended up pulling it apart a bit and redoing the background. Now, I did ask on Instagram if anyone would like to see the full process, including both layouts, or if you would just like to see the one that I ended up keeping. And the majority response was that you wanted to see it all. So I've included the process on how I created my original layout, which some of you have liked according to my polls on Instagram. So I've got it here for you, and you can see how I've gotten started here, but I do continue to show you how I pull it apart and create something new. So this is a slightly longer video than usual, and I hope you enjoy it. I'd love to know in the comments which layout you prefer. Anyway, I'm going to start telling you what I am doing. So you will have seen there I took a lovely sheet of rainbow pattern paper in slightly more jewel toned colours. It's from a previous Amy Tangerine collection. I will try find it and link it up for you below. I've taken my metal ruler and just torn that piece of pattern paper apart, giving some lovely ruffled edges between each of those colours, and then I've stuck them down with some skinny double-sided adhesive tape and torn off the sides just so more of the background is exposed. Now I'm using a sheet of white basil marshmallow cardstock, which is a slightly thicker cardstock, which is great for mixed media, and then I've added some clear gesso on top, which is just allowing these distress inks to slide across the background beautifully, and means that I can just add water and the colors blend beautifully together, and it gives me time to work those colors before they dry. Now I'm using a variety of distress inks in various colors that I feel will match that pattern paper, and I'm just swiping it across the background, and I come in and I keep adding color just to try and tone those colors so that they match that patterned paper. So I'm just swiping the ink pads onto the cardstock and then using my water just to kind of blend the colors. I really want it to look like those colors are melting out of the patterned paper. While that's drying, I'm going to be working on my cut file. I've got this gold metallic ink pad from scrapbook.com, which I'm just going to swipe across my cut file. I've cut the cut file out in like a kind of off-white grey wood grained patterned paper, and I just want to add a little bit of shimmer to this. And this ink pad, I'm not sure if this video does it justice, but it gives a beautiful shimmer, which is just perfect for an autumnal page. And now I'm going to add a little bit of vellum to those leaves and acorns. I'm just adding some glue to the back and then sticking it down and cutting out around the shapes. And I want to use vellum because I want to be able to see all that color coming through, but the vellum just helps mute it in those areas. So you can still see the lovely color, but not quite as intense where the vellum is. So you can see that's all cut and stuck down and ready for the next step. Now, a friend of mine recently sent me a whole bunch of lovely coffee sacks. They're all made of hessian, and it's just perfect for this page. And I've got so many crafty activities planned with these lovely coffee sacks. So I've just cut off a piece and I've stuck it behind one of the hexagons that are at the top of the cut file, and I'm just kind of placing it to see what I think and trimming it down a little bit before kind of making it fray a little bit, just to give a bit of a distressed, rough edge to that piece of hessian. Now, At this point, I'm noticing that my background is not matching the pattern paper as closely as I would like. The inked colours are a lot more vibrant than the patterned paper, and I really want them to tone in more. So this is kind of when I start to feel like it's not going quite how I would like it to. So I stick down that patterned paper, and now I'm taking an extra piece of Hessian, wrapping it around an acrylic block, and I'm going to be stamping it onto that gold ink pad and just adding some texture to the background. Now I'm overlapping between the pattern paper and the inked background in the hopes that I'm going to kind of merge those two together, and it's not quite there yet. So I take this Campbella liquid watercolor paint and I start adding it on. So I really just want to kind of merge those two layers together, and I do kind of achieve that with this. I love this watercolor paint. The gold is just so beautifully shimmery, and I'm starting to finally see those two layers melting into each other, and I'm getting more of the effect that I was hoping for. And adding a whole bunch of shimmer in the process. Now I'm going to leave that to dry and work on this cut file some more. I've got these 2 autumn photos from a couple years ago of my kids having a play with some of the autumn leaves that had fallen down in our front garden, and I spent quite a while cutting this out. So I start off by using the front of the cut file to get the shape, and I go backwards and forwards, trimming bits off. And it's only right near the end that I think, turn it over and use the back as a template to get around all those little leaf shapes. So you'll see in a moment, I finally figure it out, and because it comes to this second photo where I really struggled to get the shape exact. So here I am finally realizing, turn it over, trace around those little leaves and acorns, and then cut it out. So it took me a little while. I'm not sure where my head was at that moment, but I got there in the end and got those photos stuck down. So I'm just using some wet adhesive, sticking them down, and finally we're making progress. Now in a moment I'm going to be coming back and showing you some close-ups of that dried background. So here you can just see how shimmery it is. It does look pretty full on, but at this point I'm liking it more than it was. So I am carrying on, and I'm just taking some craft foam and sticking it to the back of the photos. I've picked colors that kind of so the top of the cut file is over blues and purples, so I've used blue craft foam because I'm worried it's just going to peek through the Hessian a little bit, and at the bottom where it's green I've used some green craft foam. Now I've come in with this lovely skinny double-sided adhesive foam strips, which is perfect for backing cut files, and just the right thickness for those thin little edges of those hexagons. I'm not adding any foam to the back of the leaves and acorns. They're just kind of going to float there, so it's just the hexagons that I'm focusing on. And now I'm going to stick it down onto the background. I'm going to be using a sheet of pattern paper from Paige Taylor Evans' Truly Grateful collection. It's a piece of pattern paper that's got a whole array of autumnal leaves in various shapes and colors, and I've cut them all apart, and I'm just going to be dotting them along that background in line with the colors that are on my layout, just kind of doing some tone on tone embellishing. I start off by just putting the leaves everywhere, and then I decide to go on a more diagonal route, so going from the top left down to the bottom right along that diagonal. I come in with a few cute little Peartree pieces, some little cork and wooden hearts, which I'm going to show you in just a moment, and I dot those also around the layout. There they are there, and they just tie in so nicely with the Hessian. So again, I'm just working along the diagonal. I've started off in the center, but I'm going to add some to the top left and the bottom right, just to continue that line from the top left down to the bottom right. I do come in with that gold ink pad again, just to kind of add a little bit of gold shimmer to the little wooden hearts, and then I also use it to ink the edges of all those leaves and add a little dusting of shimmer to the tops of each of those little leaves, just to tie everything in together, giving it that lovely autumn shimmer. Once that's done, it's time to start sticking all those little leaves and hearts down. I use some silicone glue, some clear silicone glue, which helps add a little bit of dimension and makes it easier to tilt those leaves in the different ways that I'd like to. And then I use some Nouveau Deluxe adhesive to stick down those little hearts.
You can't turn the tide, let the water go where it wants to go. You can run and hide, you can bury yourself beneath the stones. Somebody told me don't pretend, 'cause everyone could use a friend sometimes. Take some good advice. Don't let your fear decide. That's how you break inside. You don't need to worry, somebody's waiting down the line to pick up the pieces.
Now I'm continuing with my theme of more by bringing in these lovely gold puffy stickers by Jen Hadfield and adding little golden leaves to all of those little foliage clusters along the diagonal. So you can see each of the big groupings. I've added in a little leaf or a little cluster of leaves, and I just love that little golden accent that it adds. Now this is when I really feel that it's kind of going wrong. I bring out all these beautiful sequins in a rainbow of colors, and I feel like this is where I've just pushed it too far. So I have taken out all these sequins and I'm adding them to each side of the layout along that rainbow of color, and just adding a sprinkling of sequins. Now there's that saying less is more, which I don't use very often. I'm usually more is more, but in this case I really feel like it's just kind of pushed it over the edge. And at this point I really wish that I'd chosen one color, like maybe a golden color, and just done a few scattered sequins around the layout rather than quite so many and in all the colors. Now I decided to leave those sequins for now and work on my title, which I'm sticking down with a little bit of adhesive just because that Hessian, things don't like to stick to it. Now I've taken some of the frayed pieces of Hessian and I'm just kind of twiddling them to add some groupings of thread. I'm going to be doing 3 little groupings of Hessian thread behind some of those foliage clusters, and I'm really loving that aspect of the layout. Now just to say, I don't tear the cut file apart, thankfully. It's just the background that I don't end up loving, so I'm able to thankfully pull that whole cut file off with all the embellishments, which means it's a relatively easy fix when I realize I don't love it. So here is my finished first layout. You can see all that shimmer, all those sparkles in the background, and looking at it, I don't dislike it. It's just not quite what I had in mind. There's a lot about it that I do like. It's just that large cut file embellishment seems to just get a bit lost in the background. So you can see all of those close-ups, and in a moment you're going to see me take that cut file off. So there we go. I had done a little bit of pulling before. It came off relatively easily, which is great. Now I've got a sheet of Vicky Bouton's foundations paper, and I have quite a clear idea now of what I want to do. Now I want more white space in the background, so I don't want quite as much color. I'm not going to have pattern paper behind the cut file, and to do that I'm just going to be using these beautiful Campbella watercolors. I've got them in a variety of colors, and I'm able to kind of get those kind of dirty autumnal rainbow shades really quite easily with these. I'm not trying to match to anything, and I'm just working through the rainbow, kind of following the rainbow of those leaves that are already on the cut file. And I'm already loving how this is looking, just with a little bit more white space and just with those colors bleeding out from behind the cut file. I think where I went wrong before was using that pattern paper. The layout didn't need that pattern paper behind it, I don't think, and just having some subtle mixed media in the background I feel is already working better for me and kind of capturing the vision I had better. Now the joy of Vicky Bouton's foundations paper is that I don't need to add any gesso. I can work straight onto it. So I've just kind of put my cut file there and I'm slowly working around just to kind of get the colors in the right places, and then I'm going to go back in a moment and add more color where you can see that white gap in the middle, because I want those watercolors to shine through those vellum leaves. And I'm so much happier with how that is looking right now.
I can feel the sun and how the wind makes way across the fields. Let me take a breath. Let me be a part of something real. Someone said it's better when you hold on to a helping hand. Sometimes we could all use a friend. Don't let your fear decide. That's how you break inside. You don't need to worry. Somebody's waiting down the line to pick up the pieces. Hey, you'll be alright. You'll be alright. Waiting down the line. So don't let your fear decide.
Now, with my first version of this layout, I used my tape runner to stick it down, and with the mixed media background, it was easy just to kind of lift that cut file off. But now I'm going in with wet glue, so there's no coming back from this. I'm not going to be able to pull this apart if I don't like it again, but I'm feeling quite confident that this is the final version. I do need to do a little bit of trimming and pulling and tugging from that original layout background. So I've pulled off some of the chipboard and wooden hearts, and I have to kind of cut some of the adhesive off the back, but I managed to reuse everything, and the only thing that is not used is that painted background with some of that patterned paper, which I've actually not thrown away. I've kept it, so who knows, it might crop up later on. So I'm just coming in with those leaves and those golden puffy sticker leaves and just sticking them down and adding a few embellishments that had got stuck to the previous background, and just adding in a few little purple leaves to tie in with the purple paint in the background there too.
Don't need to worry. Somebody's waiting down the line to pick up the pieces. Hey, you'll be alright. You'll be alright. There will be someone waiting down the line.
Now, I love the sticker book, and it's got so many lovely little sentiments and alphabets, and I've not had a chance to use it yet, but I found a little phrase in there which I love, because there's Hesse in there, which isn't great for sticking things onto. I've just used some wet adhesive to help stick that down and added a little bit of that gold ink on top of it too. Now I'm coming in with some gold splatters, just nothing too much, just a little sprinkling of those gold splatters along that horizontal. And finally, I've got some of these butterscotch sequins in a variety of sizes, and I'm just again dotting them along that diagonal. I'm not putting them everywhere, a little bit at the top, a little bit in the bottom right, and a few in the middle, and I think that creates the perfect balance with there being a little bit of shimmer but just not too much. Now I'm just about done. Thank you so much for joining me on this very long process. I hope you enjoyed seeing both of them. I'd love to know which version you prefer, and it is totally okay for us to all like different things. So if you like the first one better, then that is great, and I'm really sorry that I pulled it apart, but I would love to know either way which one you like best. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd be so grateful if you subscribe to my channel, and you can find me on Instagram at handmadehappybymonique. I've linked Peartree Cutfiles up for you below, and all the products that I've used. Do pop along and join in with the challenge, and thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!